welcome to the MMA Roadshow, episode number 320. My name is John Morgan. Cold coffee is with me, and it's not just the two of us. No. We got an extra special guest in the building. Hot Tea is back.
We're on the road, boys. Of course I'm back.
Oscar Willis from the World MMA Award nominated Mac Life is back. We are on the road. I will say we do have Jose Youngs here at the table as well, who, by the way, is starting to grow on me. I'm liking this Jose Youngs character. He continues to insist that he works at a reputable MMA outlet. I'm not actually sure what that is. I don't know if it's an actual real outlet or not, but he says it. But I'm not going to hold it against him. I like the guy.
To be fair, John, there's a few people at MMA Media who say that, and I doubt their credentials too. So.
We going there already. By the way, let me set the tone. Yes, you are right. We are on the road. So if we're actually on the road at the MMA Roadshow, we're going to have Hot Tea in the building. We are at Buffalo Wild Wings, the spiritual birthplace of the MMA Roadshow. Now, of course, this is not Warm Springs and Durango in Las Vegas. This is Houston, Texas, where we're here for UFC 262, Oliveira versus Chandler. Guys, let's just talk first of all about, I guess, the feel, the atmosphere, what's going on. Because, look, we saw in Jacksonville, fervent fans. I mean, people are going crazy. People are ready. People are excited to be doing things again. I always say, look, we've kind of covered how the world has been. How could you avoid what the world has been? But we're not trying to sit here and get all political about COVID and all this stuff. But I'm going to admit something, and you guys can either co-sign or you can tell me I'm crazy. Jacksonville, I was a little nervous. I'm not going to lie. It was weird. We just hadn't been in a situation like that. It had been so long that we had been, going through all these protocols and doing all these things that, I'll be honest, I was a little bit nervous. This week, and maybe it's, I don't know, I do wonder if it's because Jacksonville, by the way, was the home of when we started the whole weirdness. I don't know. Now I don't know if it's just because it's our second event, if it's maybe because it's Texas, maybe because I don't know. I'll be honest. I don't really feel that nervous, and I'm actually pretty damn excited.
Well, I have to say that I thought you were about to go in a slightly different direction, but maybe the two correlate. I actually think that Houston is respectfully leaving COVID behind, whereas Jacksonville had left its corpse on the ground and stomped on its head. I certainly feel like where we come in here, there's a little bit more sort of attention paid to the, protocols and stuff.
Yeah.
Jacksonville, they were annoyed if you acted as if there's a pandemic. I felt, so maybe that's part of it, John. I feel a little bit more safe here. I didn't feel unsafe in Jacksonville, I suppose, but I feel a bit more safe here because I think it's still just sort of the transition is happening, whereas in Jacksonville, they very much believe it to be a thing of the past.
And I think you're right. I think having that under the belt made it a lot easier. Going to the airport for the second time for myself flying, I was like, okay, I'm not as annoyed by the fact that I'm so close in proximity.
You were just annoyed by the terrible fucking trip that you had to get here.
Yeah, that's a whole other story. Yeah, I was very annoyed for that. But yeah, I mean, it just feels, you're right. Even the people today, there were people that were, clearly when they were queued up for the press conference today, weren't wearing a mask, but they weren't flaunting. I felt in Jacksonville, people felt like they had to flaunt the fact.
Yeah.
Here, they're just kind of this is the route that we're going. We feel good. And here's another one where after we got through Jacksonville, we were in pretty close proximity at sometimes, and in some situations where it's so if we didn't get any ramifications or sick or anything after that, I feel pretty confident that this one, which is even more laid back.
I know, especially and the orgy I went to last week had no social distancing requirements.
Right.
As well. So if I didn't get it there.
Oh, I hope all those guys were gentle with
you. Josh and Diego were fine.
Oh, wow. The frosty beverages are flowing early on the MMA Roadshow. You did mention, by the way, our trip in. Without getting too much into it, we did have the most annoying trip in. We were supposed to go Vegas to Dallas, Dallas to Houston. We ended up going Vegas almost to Dallas, turning around, landing in El Paso, getting off the plane there, putting fuel on, reboarding the plane, then going to Dallas, then rushing from Dallas to get to the flight to not miss the connection to Houston, then getting to Houston, getting into some of the worst turbulence I've had in a long time.
Yeah, it was rough.
Flying past the airport because we were in this
a bad storm. Yeah, we were at the edge of the storm, so it was as bumpy as it gets because it was like there were two fronts that we were colliding, and we just happened to be flying right through it.
Terrible. And all the while knowing that we were on deadline to get a COVID test done in time because we still did have to test. We are still in the wristband era. You know, we still did have to get a test done. Fortunately, it all worked out, and it was good, and everything's been okay so far. But it was for what should be a short flight, it was a little bit of a nightmare. And, of course, we're all here for the vacant lightweight title fight. Charles Oliveira versus Michael Chandler is the fight. Now, guys, and it's in some ways, I guess, with Hot T in here, it's a little bit of a loaded question, right? I mean, I don't know.
You're right, Conor and Dustin should be. But no,
you know what I'm saying? Like, it is funny, right? Because here's the thing, is I will admit, now, and I actually just wrote a piece on this. It hasn't even published in MMA Junkie. By the time most people will listen to this, it will be. Kind of talking about this fight coming together and how it came together. And, I mean, I don't want to say it's the least anticipated or least it's a weird fight. I mean, when they first announced it, it felt like a weird fight. But I got to say, now that we're here, I'm pretty excited about it. And, you know, I said from the very beginning, I thought Dustin Poirier should be involved in a title fight. Now, if that meant Dustin versus Conor, okay, I get it. It's a little bit of a stretch. But, look, the belt's vacant. You can do whatever you want with it. And nobody in the entire world is going to argue about Conor McGregor being in a title fight. You know what I mean? He's the biggest star in the sport, and people are going to love it. So nobody would argue about him being in a title fight. I thought the fight to me personally was Michael Chandler versus Dustin Poirier, just because, you know, the Michael Chandler flame is burning bigger right now than it ever would be. And so,
yeah.
He came in, he had that amazing debut against Dan Hooker. He did all the things right, pre-fight, post-fight, all those things. So to me, I thought Chandler versus Poirier was the fight to make, if I'm being 100% honest. But Poirier wanted Conor McGregor, and I get that. It's a big trilogy. It's a big fight. That's a big money fight. Probably a bigger money fight than this, if we're being honest, even though there's not a belt on the line. Poirier wanted a piece of that. Get that. So now you got to go Chandler versus somebody else. You go Chandler Oliveira, and at first it sounds a little bit weird. You're like, that's such a bizarre. I mean, Chandler 9 months ago was fighting in Bellator, which is so crazy to think about. Oliveira, meanwhile, the guy that's been in the UFC for a decade, swore he was a featherweight forever, struggled to make 145 pounds. I think the rest of us were like, bro, can you just go to lightweight and give it a shot? And you know, finally did that, and it's been amazing. He's been 9-1 since he returned to the 155-pound division, and now it's a title fight. I thought it was a little weird coming in, but I'm pretty excited about the fight now. What about you guys?
Yeah, you know, I think we were talking about this earlier, John, where it's like kind of the most un-UFC title fight we've had in a while, where it's basically two guys who are very good in their division having a fight for a belt. You know, I think the more what we've come to expect from the promotion, the more sort of UFC title fight would be in a Conor Dustin 3. And they could have easily, like anyone who tried to complain about that, they'd say, well, Dustin deserves the title shot. Yes. Right. Like he wanted to fight Conor, so that's what we're doing. You know, it's very easy to sell. It would have been massive. And maybe part of it is they're double dipping, right? They know they have a title fight down the line with Conor or Dustin that's going to be very juicy. So it's like, well, let's just have an extra title fight. You know, let's just have an extra one. I actually am excited for the fight. I think it's going to be fun. I don't think it's kind of an interesting one. I think if you look at Charles's record, the quality of opposition, I don't know if there's a lot of like questions here, right? You know, is Michael this stud in the UFC? Is he going to be this absolutely top tier guy? Because if he loses this fight, I feel it might be similar to Ben Askren, where Ben came in and to the UFC and he was kind of more popular than his ability would warrant, if that makes sense. That sounds like
no, I know what you're saying.
Like he was getting,
he was the high-profile free agent, but he was it's still considered a little unproven, right?
But he was like getting crazy views. He would like his videos would clear like 1 million views and stuff. For Ben Askren, it's kind of like, well, who the fuck is he beat? I feel Michael's kind of riding that now, and if he loses, then it's going to be his star power will wane quickly.
Yeah. I agree. It still feels like there's a little bit of something to prove, right?
Yeah, but I mean, anybody that goes in there and does what he did to Dan Hooker, people should clearly say, okay, this guy deserves to be there. Dan Hooker clearly has been at the top and has been a contender and has been the guy that should have been able to fight for the title at some point. For him to go in there and do what he did, I have no problem with where he's at and especially his pedigree. This guy is a former champ. You know, say what you will about some of the guys he's fought. I mean, we've seen him fight through some adversity. You know, he's had some crazy injuries in the fights, you know, and then he battles through. I mean, the guy is super, super tough. But, I mean, I like what you said. Like, this does feel like a fight where they gave the title shot to guys that deserve it. Guys at the top of the division, not some crazy spectacle off to the side. How can we just grab guys together and see how much money we can make for a
Right.
pay-per-view. These are like legit guys
Well,
at the top of the
they went
division.
public, so now they don't need that sort of money.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they generated.
They don't give a fuck
$500
anymore.
million influx or whatever it was. But yeah, so yeah, I'm excited for it. I mean, I think it's a killer fight. I mean, I think Oliveira's fighting at another level right now. And after watching Chandler, if anybody had any questions, if you could just watch that Hooker fight and watch what he was able to do, it was so sick. Because Dan is as tough as it gets,
Yep.
and he made it look, excuse the word, but he made it look easy,
Right.
And that's just crazy.
You don't do that.
You don't do that to Dan Hooker.
As he said, as Michael Chandler laid it out in the press conference today, he said, "Look, right, like I did what Dustin Poirier couldn't do in 25 minutes. I did what Paul Felder couldn't do in 25 minutes.
Yes.
I mean, that is pretty amazing to say that. Like
Yes.
these guys went 25 minutes. It was a war, and I went there and I waxed them in 2.5 minutes. I mean, it's hard to argue with that.
You can't argue with it. You can't discredit it.
I actually think that could be what we see on Saturday.
Okay,
I actually think he could spark Oliveira really early as well. He's just so explosive.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what I want to get. Well, first of all, let me ask you this. We're just a couple hours removed from the press conference. We didn't have media day access to these guys, but we did have press conference access to them. Did you take anything out of the press conference today other than the fact that Charles Oliveira's teeth are just fantastic?
So
I mean,
white.
just incredible.
Yeah,
I imagine Darren Till is just sitting there right now, just watching him, thinking, "Man, I should have gone with that shade."
John Jones tried to pull him out and snort them.
I will say quickly, just on the surface of what I took away from it, I thought Michael Chandler looked in a better, healthy state. I don't know if that means he has more to cut at this point. While I was looking at the incredibly white, wonderful teeth of Charles Oliveira, I thought I noticed that his face looked a little bit more sunken in. He had glasses, so I couldn't really
agree.
see how his eyes really looked.
I thought when they did the face-off, his cheekbones are very pronounced.
Yes.
It was such a homoerotic thing to say about a man having a fight.
But I mean, when you know that they're coming up on the weight cut, that's all telltale signs to where they're at in their weight cut. When I
Yeah.
looked at Chandler, I saw nothing that made it look to me like this is hard for him at this point.
I agree. Well, he's significantly smaller in terms of height, at least. I mean, he's a thick boy, but I'd say I have a weird sort of feeling about the weigh-ins tomorrow. In Jacksonville, I had this weird feeling that something crazy was going to happen, and then a bunch of crazy things happened. I have this weird feeling about the weigh-ins tomorrow. I feel like we're going to see some odd little drama. I don't know why.
In the main event,
I don't know, man. I just feel like
I'm knocking on wood right now. I'm knocking on wood.
Like Charles might just suddenly scoot it. I don't know. And that's based on absolutely nothing other than I'd like some more views on my videos. But
Oh my gosh, I'm knocking on wood.
I mean, who
I hope
knows?
you're
I mean,
wrong.
who knows? Who knows where he's at in the weight cut and how much he has to go and how hard it is at this point.
Yeah.
I mean,
he's never missed at lightweight, right?
Right, he's only missed a featherweight.
Do you think when he wins the world title, he'll be like, right, and now 145, I'm finally going back down?
It scares me, but I'm not ruling it out because he just, for whatever reason, he always seemed like intent on doing that. And then hopefully he's gotten over it. So, all right, let's talk about the matchup itself because here's what I think. So, I ended up picking Michael Chandler in my staff pick at MMA Junkie, but I will say it scares
and
me a
they
little
should
bit.
pay attention because who's on top of the pick board right now?
I had kind of a shoddy week last week. The first time we ever kind of bragged about it a little bit, I had kind of a shoddy week. I do still remain
maintain
on
the
top. I do still remain on top, but I'm gonna hold back a little bit. But here's the thing. So I picked Michael Chandler because, look, the power that he comes out with, the aggression that he comes out with is impressive. Oliveira used to be a guy that wilted if you put pressure on him. I don't think he's that way anymore. I think he's been tested. I think he's doing a much better job of that these days. So I do think he can weather a little bit of a storm, but I don't know how much of a storm you want to weather for Michael Chandler because he can put your lights out. That said, Michael Chandler is also known for his wrestling, and I don't know that he wants to wrestle, to grapple at all with Charles Oliveira. So here's the thing: is I don't think you want to shoot in and take down Charles Oliveira because then you're in a world of trouble, right? So then what does that mean? Does that mean you just want to stand up? And if you want to stand up, now all of a sudden you're talking about that big height differential, that big length differential. So listen, I picked Chandler, but I'm having a little bit of trouble envisioning it because I think when I go with Chandler, what I think is that pressure and that power wobbles him and rocks him early, and we're talking about a first or second round TKO. That's what I'm thinking in my head, right? But it does scare me when I think that you don't have the threat of a takedown because he'll just fall on his back. Oliveira will happily just go to his back, and he can get you in transitions. And if he knows that you're not going to shoot, maybe he can stay up a little more upright, and he can work that long jab and work those kicks. So I picked Michael Chandler, but I'm a little bit worried about that pick. What are you guys thinking?
I went with Chandler as well, and the more I thought about it, as you kind of describe it, I don't really ever see Charles being. I mean, I don't envision that Chandler's going to be too worried about him taking some jabs and doing other stuff. I think if anything else, when you see Oliveira, he usually tries to work the kicks in, so I can see him trying to do something. But again, the last person you want to throw a lot of kicks at is a low-grounded fighter that wants to grab your legs and transition into like a single leg or some sort of a double leg. So he might not want to throw the legs because he's afraid that Chandler's going to catch the leg, maybe throw a punch into his face, and those shots are going to be big. So it's going to be interesting. I just don't envision that that Oliveira is going to want to stand up against Chandler. If he does, like you said, Oliveira has a lot of heart. But, while he maybe doesn't want to give up, if your lights are taken from you, you have no say in the matter.
You have no choice.
I think Oliveira is going to try to, at some point, he's going to probably make the moves to try to get him down, because I think in his mind he thinks his jiu-jitsu is much stronger than than Chandler's ground
top game wrestling. Yeah.
So I think if anything else, he's going to try to get through the big punch that Chandler's going to throw, and he's going to try to trip him, get him on the ground, and try to work some sort of submission. I don't see any other sort of game plan from Oliveira except for trying to get the submission victory.
Hot T, is it a clean sweep? Because, man,
the
guy that we weren't sure if he was a UFC caliber guy, we're all rolling with him against the dude that's on the insane win streak.
Well, I'm going to say I'm picking Chandler, and I'm not too hesitant about it. I think he's going to win. I think it actually would be not comfortable, but I think he's too cerebral to take him down and get locked up in that game. He's not going to do that, right? But I think he'll probably fake the takedown a few times. He'll have Charles thinking about it. I think he's smart enough to know that he's got to keep him guessing. I really believe that it's going to look very similar, ironically enough, to the knockout that was just on the screen over there. It's going to look very similar to the Dan Hooker fight, but much quicker. With Dan, he took a while. Not to say he'll get the finish, but I mean in terms of his tactics. He's got, with that fight, he worked the jab to the body, through the big overhand right. I think he's made it clear he's going to come out and try and pressure Charles very early, try and make him break.
Test that chin.
I think he might, in terms of striking, I don't really believe it's that close. I think, despite the height and length advantage that Charles has, I don't think he's like a striker that can sort of use that. He's not going to pepper him with jabs and keep him at bay. I think I think Michael's tough enough and gritty enough to just fucking walk straight through that anyway. So I think Michael's going to come at him with like a blitz very early on, and I think it wouldn't surprise me if you saw like Oliveira try and pull guard at some point or something like that. But I'm predicting a first or second round finish for Michael.
Intriguing, man. We're all kind of on board with the same pick. It's up to you whether you agree with our analysis or you think it's something different. But you know what I can tell you? I can tell you that this weekend's UFC 262 is sure to be a can't-miss event. Every punch, kick, and knockout means so much more with a DraftKings lineup on the line.
Yes, it does.
DraftKings, the official daily fantasy partner of UFC, is giving you a shot at huge cash prizes. For this weekend's fight, DraftKings is offering all customers a shot at millions of dollars in total prizes.
Or some would say millions.
If you haven't tried it just yet, Fantasy MMA is easy to play. Just pick 6 fighters, stay under the salary cap, and pile up points for advances. Takedowns is more. There's no better way to put your MMA knowledge to the test than to complete for a shot at millions of dollars in total prizes. Plus, don't forget, they got basketball, hockey. They've got even more money up for grabs throughout the week. DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable, so you can deposit and withdraw your funds at your convenience. So what do we need you to do, folks? If you're interested in doing this, download the DraftKings app right now and use promo code
FROSTY
for your shot at millions of dollars in total prizes throughout the week. That's promo code
FROSTY
to get a shot at millions of dollars in total prizes only at DraftKings. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for details. Thank you, DraftKings, for the fantastic support of the MMA Roadshow. By the way, speaking of fantastic support for the MMA Roadshow, did you see who snuck in to Buffalo Wild Wings behind you?
I did not.
Anthony Beach from Latchkey Brewing is in the house.
Daddy.
He made his way down to Houston, Texas. He's got some tickets for UFC 262. He's going to be in the house. Looking forward to having a frosty beverage with our man.
Is he one of the guys who was responsible for that time we had the cans and we got like fucking ludicrous?
Oh, yeah. He actually makes those. Not only does he like part of the company, like, it's literally he's like the
I'm trying
guy
to think of
brewing
which drunken episode that was. It wasn't the bad one that I did last time, but like the
I'm sure there's been many bad ones that started.
We've had a couple along the way. All right, co-main event. Benil Dariush versus Tony Ferguson, another big fight in the lightweight division. Dana White did come out and say, hey, by the way, I'm not necessarily saying this is certainly a number one contender fight, and I get that. You got to keep your options on hold if we're just being 100% honest.
He could have helped elude and push it a little bit and say, of course, these guys are always at the top of the division, that they're always
He just wanted to say no, but
he just wanted to no.
Let's be honest. We do have a certain young Irishman fighting this summer in a trilogy fight.
Who's that?
Yeah, I'm struggling to remember his name, but I hear he's a pretty popular guy.
Richest motherfucker in the world, baby.
James Gallagher?
Yes.
I don't know why I'm bragging as if it's my money, because it isn't.
I would definitely say that the winner of Dustin Poirier versus Conor McGregor 3 is probably in the driver's seat for a title fight next. So no disrespect to Benil Dariush or Tony Ferguson. And in fact, I really mean that. No disrespect at all. I love both these guys.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it, right? Because Benil Dariush, another guy that's on this amazing streak, kind of one that's probably flown under the radar a little bit. I mean, we know Benil, one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. He's not a trash talker. He never will be. He is going to take some time off after this, by the way, because he does have a child on the way. So regardless, he's probably not going to fight until the end of the year, win or lose. But listen, the guy's on quite the run. He's a hell of a fighter. He's been in some fantastic fights as of late. Meanwhile, he's going against Tony Ferguson, who has had the recent setbacks. And I think the question is, I hate to say it, but, the question is Tony Ferguson still Tony Ferguson, right? Like, how much does Tony Ferguson have left in the tank? I think that's what we're looking at in this matchup, because if Tony Ferguson is anything less than Tony Ferguson, maybe if it's not 100% Tony Ferguson, maybe if it's 95%, or something like that, he's okay. But, if he is diminished significantly, he's going to struggle against Benil Dariush. But I will say this, in talking about things, what did you take away from the press conference today? I will say that Tony Ferguson seemed to be
the show.
Well, he did steal the show. His
Dana White privilege.
Dana White privilege was pretty good. That was a great line. But
I think Dana literally enjoyed himself up there today, being sort of at the end of the butts and just being so caught off guard.
Yeah.
I think he sees so many of these. I felt like today we actually saw Dana be a little shocked. He was just like, whoa, where is this coming from?
After that, and I enjoyed the fact that Tony was like, can we get a bigger bonus because we're in Texas?
Yeah.
He's like,
next question.
Fucking
yeah,
hell,
so for
Dana.
anybody that didn't see the press conference, basically, Tony Ferguson was having a good time up there. You should go watch it. I think it's definitely worth watching. He was definitely interjecting himself a little bit. Basically, he was saying that Michael Chandler ducked him, and that the only reason Michael Chandler was getting a shot is because he was getting favorable treatment, which he called Dana White privilege, which is fantastic.
Genius.
If he came up with that on the fly, my goodness, he deserves something.
Yeah.
But
and Dana enjoyed it more than anyone else. Dana was pissing his pants at that.
He was
because he knows it's true, probably.
He's like, yeah, it is funny.
That's what I should call it.
Trust me, that's definitely a term that should stick around.
Yeah, okay.
Like, it's definitely a term that should stick around.
Someone gets a title shot too early, Dana White.
Dana White privilege. I love it. All right, so, but Ferguson, he stole the show, but just taking away from what we want to see mentally, physically, that sort of things. I don't know, man. And again, that's not necessarily, that doesn't dictate what happens in terms of X's and O's, but I do believe that mentality and psychology is a huge part of the MMA game. And I will say, Tony Ferguson could easily seem like a man that's broken. He could easily and seem like a man that's, struggling to remain and struggling to prove. And I don't know, to me today, he didn't look like that physically or mentally. To me, it looked like Tony Ferguson is there. And I don't know that, like the last couple fights, I'll be honest, he seemed a little bit off to me. Today, I felt like that's the guy.
I really believe Tony's going to be that guy. I can't believe I'm saying this, actually, because if you'd have asked me about how this fight's going to go yesterday, I would have told you that it happens the same time every time. The unbeatable fighter gets stopped.
Right.
The next one he gets dominated, and the next one he gets finished.
Right.
Right. And I feel like Tony's on that path. Right. Gaethje beat him, showed he was human. This guy who hadn't been human at all. Oliveira dominated him, showed maybe there's some miles on the clock here. And then I predicted that Dariush was going to prove that not only is there miles on the clock, he was finished as a fighter. And it's a sad but the truth that it happens to all of them.
Unfortunately, that's what happens in this game.
Today, I feel like that was a bullshit take, and actually, Tony seemed so on the ball, so sharp, so enjoying himself. I believe it's going to turn out that Tony Ferguson is the prime example of a guy who fights with fans. And in the pandemic, he had no fans, and he got his shit rocked, essentially. And I think his wacky, crazy, let's salsa dance in the middle of a fight, that thrives on fan support and thrives on their cheers. And I think he might be the prime example of a guy who needs crowds. I think Cerrone might be one of those guys too. Maybe even Connor as well. I think he's going to be one of these guys who needs crowds to be at his best. And now I'm starting to wonder. I mean, he has a tall task ahead of him, man. He looks really bad. In the fight with Oliveira, he looks not great.
No.
And Benil's on a bit of a tear, and it feels like one of those crossing paths moments. The guy on the way up, the guy on the way down. We see it so many times. He's got a tough task ahead of him. But today, I did sort of pause and think, well, actually, maybe Tony is actually still there,
I don't disagree. And by the way, can we talk about the fan support and reaction that he got?
Oh, yeah.
My goodness,
it was
man.
Awesome.
We had a pretty decent crowd.
I can't remember the last time we've heard the crowd that in favor of him.
Oh, man, we had a pretty decent crowd show up, and I saw a couple El Kukui signs in there.
No
People
shit.
were actually holding up some signs.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, they were kind of a little bit to the side of where you guys were, so you probably wouldn't have seen it.
That's awesome.
But a couple signs in there. Definitely heard some cheers and some, it was a very pro El Kukui crowd, man. So I don't disagree with you. And again, you take a guy like Dan Tom, right, who breaks down fights in such a technical way, where he's like, let me talk about the stance switches. Let me talk about and we don't, I don't know. You know what? I didn't see who he picked, to be honest with you. But I feel like what he does is on such an extreme, wonderful technical level. And what we're doing is kind of just sharing what we feel and see, and I get it, it's emotion. But I will say this. I do believe psychology and emotion do play a whole lot of factor in this game. But I will say, I think what you're saying isn't crazy. That there are just some people who that pandemic-era MMA, not that it's quite over yet, but that apex environment is just a very difficult environment for them to be successful in. And I think Tony Ferguson might, as you said, very well be one of those guys who that's just not for him. He needs that influx of volume and noise and energy.
Well, there's some guys who they're going there to have a fight, and they can have a fight in the gym, or they can have a fight in the parking lot, they can have a fight anywhere. They can have a fight in front of fans, they can have a fight in the Apex. And then there are some guys who are there, and they're there to put on a show. I think Tony's there to put on a show, and the way he does that is by having a fight. Tony's there to I'm here to put on a fucking show. And it didn't really hone into me. Before he came out to press conference, I was talking with Jose Jones, and I was saying, I'm going to ask him about, maybe fighting with no crowd versus crowd. But it didn't occur to me until he came out and got the reception he got, stopped, didn't even get onto stage, went and took a photo with the fans.
That was cool.
When I saw that, I realized, this guy fucking loves it.
Right.
He loves it. And I really think in the heat of battle, like in the Gaethje fight, when everything's going crazy, if he landed that uppercut on Gaethje and dropped him, and the crowd's there, I think he takes that into the next round and piles it on, And I think without it, it's just hard for him to really get into that flow state we hear fighters talk about sometimes. So I actually think, and this is so crazy, we're basing this on a press conference, right? But I really do see a return to peak. Will it be enough? I don't know, but I think peak sort of crazy, wacky shit, Tony. I think that's happening.
I like it.
It's crazy, right? When you think about, man, and I hadn't really thought about it, but when you talk about that uppercut that he landed, my God, that was so close to finishing. We're sitting. I mean, this game is so brutal, man. I mean, if Gaethje is anything less than Gaethje, you know what I mean? That ends a lot of people's night, and we're looking at Tony Ferguson in a title shot. Maybe he loses, maybe he wins. If he wins, obviously it's amazing. If he loses, okay, we're like, well, he just came up short. He'll get another shot. But instead, we're talking about a guy who's, potentially completely washed and shouldn't be competing again, when he damn near ended that fight for a second.
Yeah, it's just it's a very emotional sport. That's what it is. People call it a "what have you done for me lately" sport. I think it's it's a better way to describe it is a very reactive sport. You react to what happened right then. Right now, Francis Ngannou is the best heavyweight in the world.
Right.
And no one can touch him. And it's because he stuffed one takedown, essentially. You know what I mean? That's
very true.
Because Stipe didn't get deep enough on the leg, now it's Francis is unstoppable. And then what's going to happen is they're going to rematch, and then Stipe will get deep on the leg, take him down. It's I knew he was never that good. It's crazy how we react to so many things.
It's insane, man. Listen, I think these top two fights are going to be big. We're going to know a lot about the lightweight division after this weekend. And listen,
I will say, just before I go,
please do.
I picked Tony.
You picked Tony?
I picked Tony.
Did you find out Dan Tom's
I
pick?
picked Tony? No, I didn't. I was going to look it up.
Oh,
and
I thought
was
you were
like,
looking at Tom.
I
No,
actually
I
was
was
looking it up as well, and then I gave it up halfway through.
Yeah.
I will say that
I think this is the perfect fight for Tony to win. I think this is the perfect opponent, and after seeing how assertive he was out there, I felt even more confident that he's gonna do some right things. In
I
this
will
fight.
say though, I don't necessarily like. Well, also, it was so weird. He fucking loves the Ultimate Fighter, doesn't he?
Yeah,
he
yeah,
just
yeah.
never
yeah.
stops
He'll
talking
bring that
about
up.
it. But he's having Freddie Roach in his corner. Don't necessarily know if Freddie Roach, like, his skills are applicable in MMA, and I kind of feel like he's become a figure of MMA fighters. Like, oh, he's a legendary. It's like having Teddy Atlas in your corner. It's like he's amazing, but he's not
I
necessarily.
would much rather Freddie Roach than Teddy Atlas.
Whoa!
Yeah, hot
Why?
take right there.
Why?
Because Teddy sucks.
Whoa!
You are fucking deranged, mate. We're a fireman! I'd have that every day. I'll have someone screaming belligerent shit at me. That's great.
Freddie Roach is the real deal. Teddy Atlas is just a bad
Hot
TV commentator.
takes out here.
What the fuck did Teddy do to you?
Nothing.
That's so insane.
Well, I just said I want Freddie. Freddie's a much nicer gentleman. Take that,
Teddy
Teddy.
Atlas is a gentleman. I mean, he might have threatened Mike Tyson with a gun once, but, you know.
There you go.
See,
That's okay, though, because Tyson was just like 15 years old, so you got to threaten a kid with a gun sometimes.
You throw it out if they're underage. Like, it's fine. Wait, no.
No, it doesn't count.
Don't.
Yeah.
Whoa. All right, moving on. If you like what you're listening to, except for that last little part, and if you could pretend that you never heard that, I would appreciate that. Make sure you support the show over at patreon.com/the MMA Roadshow. That, of course, is the exclusive home for the and a half episodes where we recap every single UFC event, which means damn near every single week we're bringing you a little bonus episode. Plus, we're putting much more audio over there. We got some discussion over there, some people just chatting and enjoying the sport, fellow like-minded MMA fans like yourself. And maybe you don't care about any of that, but you just say, you know what, I like John Morgan and I like Cold Coffee, and I just want to help support their show. They're bringing me this episode for free every single week for 320 consecutive weeks.
That's a lot
Never
of weeks.
missed a single
lot of
week.
weeks.
The
pretty
Lou
dope, dude.
Gehrig of MMA podcast. Wait, Cal Ripken beat Lou Gehrig, right? Yeah, okay. The Cal Ripken of MMA
And I think
podcast.
Lou Geary had a really bad ending, didn't he?
Wow, I mean, I think we probably know we're all going towards that as well. So,
That's
so
true.
yes, the Lou Gehrig of MMA podcast. Support us, patreon.com/the MMA Roadshow. All right, guys, let's talk about the rest of this main card. Of course, we saw the main and the co-main event today at the press conference, but we did have media day sessions with everybody else involved. Rogerio Bontorin versus Matt Schnell. That's a short notice contest between two flyweights that's going to take place at bantamweight. Viviane Araújo, who I think is a very, very talented individual, and her quality of competition has been, I mean, nothing but absolute top-notch against Caitlin Chukagian, who I think it's a lot of undue disrespect, if I'm being honest with you. You know, that's a key matchup there as well. And then, of course, the show stealer on the main card, Edson Barbosa versus Shane Burgos, which looks like on paper it's going to be absolute dynamite.
Should be incredible.
I think if I ask the question of which fight stands out to you or which one are you most excited, I think it's pretty easy to say Barbosa and Burgos. Although, let me say, I think Bontorin and Schnell is going to be a banger as well. But let me just ask you, I mean, the interviews, did anything that anybody said stand out to you, or any moment, or just anybody catch your attention out of those main card fights that you want to bring some attention to?
I wouldn't say any of them were out of the ordinary. I felt it was a pretty sort of, you know, it wasn't a lot to read into at media day, but I will give Chukagian some notice. I thought she came across as a woman who understands what she is in terms of her style's not fan-friendly. She's not this crazy trash talker. She is what she is. She fights. She wins fights, and deal with it basically. I think she came across very comfortable in that. She said, "Look, I love the fans, but they don't get me paid, you know."
Right.
So I found that kind of interesting. That basically she's not apologizing for how she fights. Now, whether that will work out for her, I mean, you know, she had a title shot and that went the way it was. But I think I'm not going to.
It just sucks when you're talking about Valentina Shevchenko, right?
Yeah, but I mean,
You know?
I
It happens
don't
to
feel,
everyone that challenges her.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I'm breaking crazy grounds where maybe in the industry we've heard the UFC aren't like the hottest on Caitlin Chukagian, you know?
Right.
I don't think I'm speaking out of turn there. And I think, you know, you look at Curtis Blades, he has the same sort of opinion about the fans. I think, again, it doesn't necessarily help you long run. But look, her job is to win. She's here to do that. And, you know, she quite possibly could win this one.
I agree with you. I like what she said, which was basically like, look, and she didn't use the term gatekeeper, but she did just basically say, listen, I understand that right now I'm not in line for another title shot. However, I want to make sure everybody in this division understands in order to get a title shot, you go through me. And I love that a lot. I thought that was a fantastic statement for her. And listen, Viviane Araújo, I think she's the real deal. She had the setback to Jessica Eye. If she didn't have the setback to Jessica Eye, she would have probably fought for a title by now. She's fought nothing but top-level competition since she came in. So this, to me, is a very, very intriguing fight. Bontarine stepping in on short notice against Schnell, fighting up a division. I do think this is going to be a great fight. I'm high on Bontarine. He's had some setbacks, but I do think he's got some real skills. Schnell has the Houston ties. So, I mean, this is kind of a home game for him. And I know he's pretty excited about that. And I like Schnell as well. I mean, he's just fun to talk to. He's got a little bit of swagger to him. He's got a little bit of style, and he's bringing it all together. But listen, Barboza versus Shane Burgos, just
the fight's sick.
It's going to be on paper.
Sick.
It looks like it's going to be absolute nuts.
I think Burgos takes it though. I'm pretty confident.
That's who I picked. I
think he's got the better boxing.
He's just got great size. I mean, as much as when I looked at the Barboza, I forget what his actual age is. He's a good bit older than Burgos, but he's
fight terms.
In fight terms,
older.
he's a very
10
young,
years older.
a very very young man. I mean, he's absolutely fantastic, and this is the kind of fight that he definitely could win, especially catches anybody with those kicks that he has. I just think Shane is just super tough.
He's an animal.
I mean, I think he can walk through a lot of those shots to get his shots, and I think his shots are going to do more devastating damage when they land.
Well, I tell you.
And he's just a fucking monster. But that fight, clearly, I mean, I'm so excited to see Chandler and Oliveira fight. But this is right below that in terms of fight that I'm anticipating to see the fireworks that could happen.
Yeah.
Like, if fireworks do not happen, I'm going to be so absolutely let down.
It's almost certainly going to be a fucking stinker now.
Well, if I had that much control of the universe, then maybe so.
I will say this. You talked about Oliveira, and we were talking about weight earlier.
Yeah.
I saw Shane Burgos just walking around town earlier. Very sunken in, but looked fine with it.
Yeah.
But I was like, damn, this motherfucker.
That's not an easy
cuts
cut.
a lot of
He
weight.
cuts a lot of weight.
By the way, the age difference, 5 years in actual human years,
So
probably a
decades.
lot more in
Damn,
terms of fight.
Barboza, how old is Barboza?
35.
He's younger than Tony. Feels like
Crazy,
feels
right?
like he's been around forever. Right?
He has been around.
Same like Aldo.
By the way, I did think it was a great question, which I believe Jose Youngs asked the question, and just goes to prove that the guy deserves to be picked up by a reputable outlet. I mean, the guy. He's toiling away there at this place that nobody's ever even heard of. Not even sure if it really exists. But I think he was the one that asked about watching the Chris Weidman leg kick and you being kind of a master of the leg kicks.
That is a good question. Someone should hire him.
What did you think about that? You see, someone should pick him up.
He gets paid in beans. Someone told me that. He gets paid in runner beans.
He said, Barboza basically said, listen, absolutely I think about that. I think about the possibility of a broken leg, but that's basically the risk of what we do, man. It's part of the game. And I was like, man.
It'd be much funner if he went, well, I wasn't thinking about it until you just mentioned it, you fucking bitch.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, or if he's like, oh, no, actually I saw that and I decided I'm never throwing another leg kick again. He was like, I don't want that to happen to me.
God, do you see that? It snapped in half and wiggled around.
All right, let's talk about the preliminary card. I do think the main card should be fantastic. We did get to speak to some of the prelim fighters as well. I'll talk about the ones that we got a chance to speak to first and ask you about those. We did talk to Andre Muniz against Ronaldo Jacare Souza. Mike Grundy is taking on Lando Venata, and Andrea Lee is taking on Anthony Shevchenko. We did get to talk to all 6 of those fighters. I will say, to me, the standout quote had to be from Jacare Souza, right? Who did his entire scrum in English.
Yeah.
Apologized for his English afterwards, even though it was damn near spot on. I didn't think he made many mistakes at all.
Only person he couldn't talk to was the English person in the room.
He definitely didn't understand what you had to say, but there was a little bit of an accent in there. But I love the fact, and again, I think he clearly had this line that he wanted to deliver because he was in the middle of basically answering a question to me, and then was like, hey, there's just one thing I need to say. But I loved it, and I don't have the exact quote in front of me, but essentially what it boiled down to is like, hey, listen, I know that, sometimes the young lion kills the old lion, the young lion kills the old lion, but sometimes the young lion dies trying. I'm ready to kill this guy. And I was like, oh, shit. In fact, I think I even said, I was like, that's a good line, Tucker, right?
Yeah, in fact, I'll go further. He delivered it like a killer as well, and then I just heard from home it's a good line, Jack, right? And then he didn't change his face at all, so it was just he looked like he was just stewing up there. And
man, that was fantastic. But, and dude, how about this too? I did ask him because I hadn't spoken to him since, the the knockout to Kevin Holland, which was a crazy knockout. And all we talked about that knockout was like, what an amazing knockout from Kevin Holland. And so I asked Jacare, I'm like, so what did you take out of that? Like, hey, I need to be more aware. Yeah, I was in the concussion he took out. So, what did you take out of that? That you need to be more aware in situations that you didn't think you need to be aware, or that shit will never happen again? He was like, that shit will never happen again.
Yeah.
I was like without batting an eye, I thought that was fantastic.
Jacare's one of those guys, man. He's like, there's not a lot of MMA fighters that you'd say have a presence. Most of them are pretty normal people, and I think that comes with maybe their star power. We see these guys so often and stuff. Something about Jacare, man. He's very much a Romero kind of guy where he walks in the room, you're like, oh, this is a bad motherfucker right now.
I don't think a lot of MMA fans, and I get it, like, first of all, probably a lot of MMA fans weren't like, oh, yeah, I watched all of Strikeforce, and I saw that. So they probably missed part of his career. But I guarantee you a lot of MMA fans aren't aware of his grappling credentials. Like didn't watch, Abu Dhabi Combat Club and haven't seen. Like, that dude as a grappler was
Is he not
next
up there as
level.
possibly the best in the MMA?
One of the greatest of all time, without question.
Him and Maya and there's like
Verdum.
in terms of like grapplers, it's like he's up there, right?
One of the greatest of all time. So this is a big ball, but I mean, listen, he's getting near the end of his run. I mean, listen, we've been covering the sport for a long time, and we're starting to see these careers end, unfortunately, and his is coming to an end. This to me,
because he's what, 41?
Yeah, 40, maybe even older than that. I think.
Fuck,
he's
was
getting
he
up
in
there.
fight years?
He's getting up there.
Oh, in 5 years. No, you're right, 41. For some reason, I was thinking.
But still, when you look at
for
that
some
number,
reason, I was thinking 43. I think Floyd Mayweather's 43. I think that's why 43 is
another guy that's like he looks good for his age. But yeah, I mean, I think when most people look at Jacare, they don't think like, oh man, he's in his 40s, he can't fight anymore.
To me, this feels like a must-win for Jacare, and here's why is the way I see it. And it's probably obvious, but like, look, when they announced this matchup, I mean. Listen, unless you're the hardest of hardcore, I bet a lot of people were like, who? Andre Muniz? Like, no disrespect to Andre Muniz, but, like, he's very new in his career. He's undefeated in the UFC.
I can raise my hand and
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Also, mate, I still don't know. I'm Googling
him.
He's undefeated in the UFC. He's a credentialed grappler as well, which I think is great because, not to say that he couldn't, score a knockout. That's a great thing about this fight. But I think what the matchmakers were probably thinking here is that, hey, at least this is a fight for Jacare that's probably going to be a grappling match, which, by the way, Muniz did say, like, oh, I'll grapple. Like, we going to the ground and we going to grapple. Like, I'm not afraid of him at all.
I'd love a grappling match.
Oh, I'd love it.
I'd love it. Like, I love it when there's, like, the Gregor Gillespie fight. I love a good scramble.
Yep.
Oh,
but
that was ridiculous.
That was insane.
That's a fight where people are like, I don't know about guys with good ground game. I just want to see a knockout. It's like, watch that.
Dude,
like,
you know
that
what?
was completely, that was tense drama right there.
By the way, it was so tense. By the way, somebody sent me a clip today. I got to go back and watch that fight. I didn't realize how bad Gregor grabbed onto the cage during that.
Did he?
Oh, my God.
It was just like it was like the Tasmanian devil.
Oh, they were amazing.
Ages.
I got to go back and watch that fight. It was so amazing. That fight was that was one of my favorite fights of the year so far.
Yeah.
But dude, this to me feels like a must-win for Jacare. Like, if you're not capable of beating a guy that most people were like, who, when you got matched up with,
for sure.
That's bad.
I think how many? I mean, look, man, they cut names now. They'll cut names, and I think if, like you say, you can lose to a Kevin Holland, who people know and people kind of like Kevin Holland. You don't get away with losing to an Andre Muniz,
I agree. Mike Grundy versus Lando Venata. You know what's funny? I love this matchup because it's two of the most snake-bit guys in the UFC. I think their careers are just so weird and their starts and stops. Grundy clearly is going to come out and try to wrestle Lando Venata, who is starting again in the featherweight division. Man, guys, I love talking to Lando, man. I think probably he, convinces me that he's in a better place than he is every single time.
I agree.
But, man, did he not make it feel like, he's just recentered, refocused, and ready to do something special?
100%, man. He really came out there. Weirdly enough, he came out with a Reptile shirt and then denied it was Reptile, which I found odd, but maybe that was his mind games. But yeah, no, he came out and said, like, no, look, we're like, this is a new me. I feel like Lando has always been exciting, but he's never recaptured the Tony Ferguson fight. Where he came in as this nobody and took Tony to really tested Tony.
Oh, that was. I mean, you talk about in terms of UFC debuts.
Yeah, I really think that he's kind of. This is going to sound disrespectful, and it's not exactly what I mean, but I feel like his name is kind of coasted on that. Everyone's like, oh, Lando Venata, yeah, that guy, he nearly got Tony, and I feel like much like with Jacare, now's the time. Okay, are you a legit prospect or not? Because it feels like he's been around long enough that people are going to stop caring if he doesn't pull something out.
Right. It's a big one for him. Meanwhile, Mike Grundy, of course, he's had some setbacks and was pulled out from COVID from fighting early this year, fighting out of the UK. We'll see if he can deliver on something big. That's a big matchup. By the way, and again, you know what? I'm going to credit Jose Youngsmith because I believe it was his question. And again, one more example why if there's any major outlets out there looking for some fresh talent that maybe is under your radar, you haven't heard of the guy, you're not seeing his output anywhere because it's just getting buried on the ethers of the internet. I believe it was Jose Youngs who asked about the New Mexico situation with Joshua Fabia and what Lando Venata could, and Lando Venata basically confirmed that no, he knows the story of Joshua Fabia getting triangle choked in a bar in New Mexico. Now, he wouldn't confirm any names. I poked around, and I was given a name of the person who was responsible for this. The name, and I don't mean this to be disrespectful, I don't know who this person is. The name I was given, and I don't know if this is accurate or not, but it's a name. Again, we're playing a little bit of telephone game here. This is a friend of a friend who told me that the name of the guy was Jimmy Rayborn. So if anybody is
old school Jimmy.
Triple OG Jimmy. Triple OG Jimmy, I
Everybody
believe.
knows Jimmy around the block.
I'll be honest with you. I do not know this gentleman. I do not know if he ever fought professional. If anybody out there knows this story and can confirm it and can tell me if this is right, but that's the name I was given.
Just putting them out there?
I'm intrigued. I'm throwing it out there. Yeah. I want confirmation. I can't confirm. It's the name I was given. I can't confirm it. I don't know if it's right or wrong.
Have you tried finding him? It'd be some scoop, John.
It'd be some story. I know. And so part of me wanted to just keep that close to the vest and investigate. But let's be honest, I don't have much time. I mean, we're on to the next week.
I can't wait for the text messages
What's his name
Josh
again?
is going to send you now, mate.
Yeah, right.
Did he ever send you crazy texts before?
Come on.
Didn't he? Yeah, I remember that because
anybody that's come in contact with him has received.
What's his name? I'm going to Google him again.
Jimmy Rayborn is the name I was given. So if anybody's out there and can tell me about that, all right. Andrea Lee versus Antonina Shevchenko, obviously a big fight there. Andrea Lee on this 3-fight slide wants to get off of it. 2 of them by split decision. One that she feels very confident she won. Antonina Shevchenko, of course, looking to get some consistency going in her career as well. And, of course, she does have that name value that she brings to the table. So that's a big fight there at 125 pounds. It's rounded out by Jamie Pickett versus Jordan Wright. You look at the early ESPN Plus prelims, Priscilla Cachoeira versus Gina Mazzani, longtime Vegas resident who's now out in Kansas City. Kevin Aguilar versus Tucker Lutz. Christos Giagos versus Sean Soriano, who is returning to the UFC after 6 years away, getting his second start underway. So should be action from the start. Of course, we'll have it all covered. But, of course, you know what this is about, the vacant interim.
What?
Interim. Just vacant.
What, because Tony's on the card, you got to throw interim in there?
Freudian slip there. The real champ is Conor McGregor. We all know that. Vacant.
I didn't even have to say it.
The vacant title is on the line. Guys, any other storylines from this week? Anything from Houston? Anything that's, I mean, look, we're back in front of crowds. I'm excited for 17,000. I cannot tell you how special the environment was in Jacksonville with 15,000. I know Texas is going to bring it strong, and I think the fighters respond. Again, we kind of joke. We say, look, we're not necessarily breaking down the X's and O's like the Dan Toms of the world, but, dude, you can't tell me that as exciting as that card was, in Jacksonville, it didn't have something to do with the fact that 15,000 screaming people were in there kind of willing it on. Now there's 17,000.
I mean, when you're in the bowels of the arena, when you can't see any of the said number of people, it all sounds the same.
But do you feel
it all sounds
Kenny,
the
that's
same?
Not true. We felt bad when Chris Weidman's family walked past us.
Oh, did you have to watch that?
They just had to walk past us. He had to go through the media room.
No.
Kenny's look of complete discare on his face says
I didn't see him.
Oh, okay, well there you go.
That would explain the look then.
Yeah. No, that was. But no, even in there, when you heard the crowd rumble, I thought
Yeah, that's great. Whatever.
Okay.
But I'm not going to go
Kenny
whether
wants
it's
to end
15 or
He
17.
wants to end this episode
No,
on a high.
I
on
mean,
a positive and a real.
It is what it is.
I mean, it's true. Though,
everybody's like, "Oh, it's going to be so crazy." We're in the bowels. I won't even see the crowds except on a TV screen, just like you at home. Except I will have food given to me and bad coffee.
Dickheads asking shit questions.
If you ever get tired of cold coffee as a nickname, how about the bowel master. You know what I mean? You're
I've been
always
that
in the
master
bowels.
forever. I love the bowels. I'm deep in the bowels.
Wow. Okay.
I thought that's why you liked me. No, I'm just kidding.
I prefer a gentler touch.
That's true.
You know, if you love this type of conversation, patreon.com/MMA
we
Roadshow.
get really,
That's
really
we
nasty.
started with anal sex. We ended with anal sex.
Did we?
Well, I mentioned. Never mind. It's fine.
You started. No, like I'm like again, and I say that with all seriousness. Like it's gonna be fun to be in there. I mean, we'll hear the crowd, but you know, it is what it is. I'm just glad to get back to just repetitive good fights. Just more fights, more good fights. When we were at the Apex, but I like I've grown to love the Apex shows. They're so quick and convenient to get in and out. What's neat about this is that it's this right here. We're all here on the road, but we're out at a wing spot, having beers, being able to do this. Like for me, this is more of a highlight for like the trip than sitting in the basement of an arena, listening to crowd, having a much funner time out.
I actually completely agree with you, man. This is the part that I've missed.
Like
man.
this is cool.
Yeah.
Like this is what I'll remember after the fact. Honestly, when you sit and we do the questions, we do the interviews afterwards, and if something great comes out of course we're gonna remember that. But when you start going back through the in your head of all these shows, when you're sitting down there, this is more of the stuff that I'll remember from the trip than anything else. Is the fact that here we are, finally again able to be sitting at a bar, recording the show in the town, actually feeling like we're on the road. This feels like we're on the road.
Because usually those nights I never really remember.
Right?
I usually wake up in a cold sweat and cry. Except
And
last
sore.
last time when I was sore. Except last time when I obviously lost my phone and had a heart attack and I couldn't make it to media day.
Well, that was difficult. I mean, obviously, all the things that you went through there. Food poisoning.
Tough night. Car
Oh, yeah,
crash. Car crash in my
crash,
door that
food
day.
poisoning.
Yeah, it's terrible.
The car was actually food poisoned, and that's why
Yeah.
it crashed.
That was actually the worst. Dude. That's the first time I've ever since I've got working in MMA. I mean, when I was a construction worker, and my dad's gonna listen to this. I'm sorry, Dad. Like the amount of times I fucking had to miss work for being too drunk or hungover the next day. That was I didn't realize I was about to tell that story when Dad was going to listen to this. Never mind. Yeah, no. I missed
When I look at you, I completely think construction worker. I don't know why you ever left the biz.
I flourished. Let me tell you, couldn't cut a saw in a straight line for 3 years, mate. And they'd be like, just cut the way the pencil is. I was like, I can't. It doesn't go that way.
Boy, we are a bunch of just unskilled individuals, aren't we?
Yeah, I love it.
We failed upwards, though.
I
did.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
We
They
did.
Failed upwards.
UFC 262 this weekend. Patreon.com/MMA Roadshow. Make sure you go over to DraftKings.com, download the app,
And
promo code.
Frosty.
Support us all. We appreciate all that stuff. And if nothing else, we just tell you, thanks for listening.